Good evening. It really is sometimes such a blessing to be able to pause and to think about some of the things that have been happening during the week or even during the month. How has Black Lives Matter, how has that movement affected you? Some of us were possibly triggered right back to 1976, especially given how close this Black Lives Matter movement has been to June the 16th, because of all that evokes in our own history. It is understandable that Black Lives Matter could well act as a trigger in our emotions, in our memories, and depending on who we are, what our context and perspective is, as well as what our life experience is, this will also inform the way in which we have chosen to engage or not engage around this movement within America. In a way, none of us is neutral in this pain. We of course do have the option to ignore it, to brush it aside, but even within that choice, we are saying something. And what is it that we're saying? And maybe we need to explore that to see why that has been our chosen response or reaction. The first time I heard that naming of Black Lives Matter, almost without conscious thought, it was almost an automatic response. I confess that I found myself thinking, but all lives matter, and yes, that is a core Christian truth. However, perhaps that can only really mean something when it is an authentic, incarnational, lived reality for everyone. Until we have the guts to face and honestly, lovingly address the societal schizophrenia, the lopsidedness, the dualism that is prevalent in the entire organism of humanity, be it from racism, genderism, whatever ism it is. Until we face that, then the individual cannot be fully whole. It reminds me of that memorable line in George Orwell's book Animal Farm, where he writes, "All animals are equal. Some animals are more equal than others." You know that we of course have a constitution, but in America there is also what is called the Pledge of Allegiance, and that Pledge of Allegiance is made to the American flag. It's not a legal requirement in any context, but it certainly is perceived as a show of patriotism. So many, if not most of the schools in America on a daily basis would make this Pledge of Allegiance. What is worth noting is the closing words, which read as follows: "One nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." Nowhere does it say with liberty and justice for some more than others. So literally for centuries, this is what some Americans have experienced and continue to experience, as many South Africans still feel they have as their life experience. What happens in our human psyche when daily we live with this painful distortion that is imposed on us whenever there is any form of incongruity? Yes, in terms of the American situation, there are complexities and histories and subtleties that I myself as a South African and a white South African cannot fully comprehend. However, I do believe that no matter who we are, we can ask ourselves, what does it do to anyone's psyche to be told one thing through, for example, the Pledge of Allegiance, through even our South African Constitution, and yet we experience something completely opposite, and in some cases the very extremity of that opposite. How does that mess with one's head, with one's self-perception and image? What does it do to our personal sense of congruence, of integration? Is this something of the taint of what we mean by a sin of where we choose the comfort and the reassurance of our building up our superiority at the cost of someone else's dignity? Surely the sense of entitled superiority has its own disease, own dis-ease, because it is attached to an illusion. After all, God made all life forms, and God made all forms of life good. There is no grading system. Mike Wedderburn, who is a Sky Sports News presenter, wrote an article on the 23rd of June, that is on Tuesday of this week. And in this article, these words appear. They are words that have touched a chord deep within me. See what they sound like to you and feel like in your heart. Black Lives Matter is a cry for help, not an attack on white people. I find myself asking, who are the people in my own environs? Who are these people that are crying out to be seen, to be heard, to be valued as one of God's precious pearls? What is often easy to forget is that when we treat anyone as lesser, as subhuman, it actually doesn't alter in any way the value of their being, but what it does do is unmask our inhumanity. Diarmuid O'Murchu, in his book Poverty, Celibacy and Simplicity, writes this: we tend to identify many things by labels that distort rather than by names that protect and liberate potential. The purpose of our existence is to enhance and advance life's capacity to relate. We need to reclaim wholeness over fragmentation and give priority to complementarity over dualistic division. End of quote. The reducing of one grouping of people over and against another diminishes the perpetrators. It creates a lose-lose scenario. No matter who the other is, for as much as we honor the other, we honor ourselves. And when there is a congruence between what we say and how we behave, then relational trust and hope are nurtured, and there is a rippling out quietly into the collective consciousness, and integrity is birthed and sustained. Please, let us all keep on reflecting, wrestling, facing ourselves as a human race, and on our ongoing need for Christ's radical redemption and our calling to be animators and incarnators of this radical redemption, one breath at a time. Good night. God bless you, and thank you that we continue to make this journey together. Presence by presence, held in the essence of God.